Batman: Mask of the Phantasm brought the animated series to the big screen and delivered a noir story that asks the question, what if Bruce Wayne finds a reason not to be Batman? We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. Warner Brothers was so impressed by the quality and reception of the Batman animated series that after the end of the first season, they switched the planned movie Mask of the Phantasm from a direct-to-video release to a full theatrical release. This resulted in the normal 2-year production schedule for an animated film to be shortened to 8 months. Despite the unreasonable demand, the creative team led by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski used the foundation of storytelling they had established for the series to deliver a fan-favorite Batman story. The series first aired in 1992 and was a radically different take on a kids' animated TV show. At the time, Warner Brothers' hit show was Tiny Toons, and the most prominent attempt at a superhero show had been Super Friends.
Batman!
These shows were very light and happy in tone, in large part due to broadcast standards and practices. BS&P departments were responsible for making sure shows were appropriate for their audiences, and by extension, making sure that the TV network wouldn't get in trouble with parenting groups or political committees. Policies for shows like Super Friends were so strict that writers and artists found it really difficult to create interesting storylines or action scenes.
You know, I'm going to have somebody shrink the superheroes.
You won't be bugging me much longer.
We had a scene where Robin kicks a spider off a table that's going to attack them. And we got the BS&P note, is the spider okay? We have to show that the spider is okay. And so we had a panel put in the storyboard where you see the spider crawling away.
So, when some of those same writers and artists were asked to come work on a new Batman animated series, they were told it was going to be a much darker tone. That excited them, but they didn't really believe it until they saw a trailer that had been created as a proof of concept. That trailer ended up being the basis for the series' intro. People were shocked that the villains would have weapons, that fistfights would happen, and that the show didn't have to be bright and colorful. But this was reflective of the way Batman was trending as a character. There were certain stories that had started to shift people's perception of Batman. One of them being The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller in 1986. Then of course Tim Burton's Batman in 1989. In both comics and film, darker adaptations of Batman had resonated with audiences. So the series creators felt it was time to bring that style to a TV show. They wanted it to appeal to kids, but they also wanted it to be a show that they would be excited to watch as adults. Luckily, several studio executives were on board, which allowed the series to have a higher budget than normal so they could get a full orchestral score and top-notch voice talent such as Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as the Joker.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
That's it. That's what I want to see. A nice big smile.
The creators of the show wanted it to be a noir story, and where we can see this most clearly is with the way the show treated its villains. The series always attempted to humanize Batman's famous rogues gallery, to make them sympathetic enough that when Batman defeated them in the end, it often felt less like a victory and more like a tragedy. So with all of these elements in place, we come to the first feature-length movie of the series, Mask of the Phantasm. The story is delivered with a non-linear timeline. In the present, Batman has had about 10 years of experience, but with flashbacks, we see the early days of Bruce's mission. This iteration of Batman is by far and away the most selfless version we've seen so far. His entire motivation for being Batman is from an oath he made to his parents.
I talked to my parents.
What'd you say?
I made a vow.
What vow?
A secret one.
Ooh, a man of mystery. Have you kept your vow?
So far.
Some adaptations of Batman question whether Bruce actually becomes Batman for noble reasons, or if there's an element of self-serving to it, whether that's for revenge or to escape his pain. But Mask of the Phantasm makes it clear that this version of Bruce Wayne doesn't really want to be Batman, but rather views it as a responsibility and calling. And it starts when a mysterious figure known as the Phantasm arrives in Gotham and assassinates multiple crime bosses, which again is a pretty crazy setup for a kids movie.
Who are you? What do you want?
I want you, Chucky boy.
As Batman investigates, we find out this case is hitting closer to home. The flashbacks reveal that when the idea of Batman was still forming, Bruce fell in love with a woman named Andrea Beaumont. The problem is that Bruce realizes he cannot be Batman and truly be Bruce at the same time.
It's gotta be one or the other. I can't have it both ways. I can't put myself on the line as long as there's someone waiting for me to come home.
So in one of the most iconic scenes, Bruce goes to the grave of his parents and asks to be relieved of his oath because
I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
With that one line, we understand a core concept of this version of Batman. When he puts on the cape and cowl, he understands he is choosing a life of unhappiness. He's sacrificing his own wants and needs because he truly believes he has the ability to right a wrong he sees in the world. But we see him come to terms with leaving that responsibility behind when he proposes to Andrea. So it's only more tragic when Andrea suddenly breaks it off. But in the present, we find out the real reason why the engagement was broken off as Batman continues investigating the case and reunites with Andrea, who has come back to Gotham. Andrea's father, Carl, was indebted to the very same crime bosses who have now been assassinated by the Phantasm. Carl and Andrea managed to stay in hiding until one of Carl's former employees, Arthur Reeves, sold them out to the mob because Carl wouldn't fund Reeves' political campaign. Andrea tells Batman she has come back to Gotham to try and stop her father, who has become the Phantasm. Meanwhile, Arthur Reeves now believes that the Phantasm is coming for him next, so in desperation, he turns to the worst possible person for help.
And to think how tax money goes to pay those jerks.
Before Joker became what he is now, he worked as an enforcer for the mob. Through him, we find out that Carl Beaumont can't possibly be the Phantasm because Joker assassinated Carl for the mob years ago. And Batman finally realizes his long-lost love is the Phantasm. Whoa! His heart is broken all over again as he sees that Andrea has been consumed by revenge.
Look what they did to us! What we could have had! They had to pay!
But Andy, what will vengeance solve?
If anyone knows the answer to that, Bruce, it's you.
Batman tries to intervene before Andrea or the Joker can harm one another, but ultimately Andrea gets Joker and disappears.
One way or another, it ends tonight. Goodbye, my love.
So Andrea and Bruce have become mirror characters. They both lost their parents to violent crime, they both adopted alternate personas to try and right those wrongs, but Bruce has chosen a path where he refuses to let it be self-serving vengeance, and Andrea has chosen a path of brutal justice. And in the final scene, the movie fully lives up to that idea of a noir, where it doesn't end in triumph for our hero, but tragedy for everyone involved.
Do you want to be alone?
I am.
They both understand that their choices have led them down paths of isolation, but they both refuse to abandon their commitment to their ideologies, because their belief systems have become their real identities. Bruce is the mask for Batman, and the mask of the Phantasm is Andrea Beaumont. So Mask of the Phantasm acts as a perfect example of how Bruce Timm and his team created an iconic version of Batman that still holds up today, not just by being darker in tone, but by giving depth to the story and refusing to underestimate their audience. And for our final Batman movie of the month, we're going to be taking a look at another adaptation heavily influenced by the noir genre with Matt Reeves' The Batman.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
You should put that in.
Released in 2022, The Batman is our most recent big screen adaptation of the character, which only doubled down on the dark, gritty tone we see in most of the live-action movies. But here, there was an entirely new focus. Far more than any of the other live-action versions, this movie took Batman's title as the world's greatest detective to heart. The Batman is a noir detective story. It uses the tropes and style of that genre to provide an examination on what Batman really represents, both to the people of Gotham and to Bruce himself. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. As the 6th version of Batman that we've watched this month, how do Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson distinguish this version of the character from the others we've seen? What thematic ideas do you think Reeves is trying to present through this version of the Riddler? Why does he have an online following? What does he think of Batman and why? What is Batman's arc in this movie? How does he change as a character from the first scene we see him in to the last? So let's chat about Mask of the Phantasm in the comments, and I'll see you back here on Sunday to discuss The Batman. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.